Hi there, I'm Katy-Rose, and today I want to talk a little bit about connection. Now, the word connection has many different meanings, and I'm going to talk through a couple of them today. So one of the meanings of connection is with other people. So humans are a social species. We are wired, our brains are wired for connection, for making connections with other people. I believe it's also why we have kind of pets and things, like we are just wired to look for meaning and I'm trying to think of another word for connection, but with others. We're looking to connect with others. We are looking to experience things not just by ourselves. And this might be, for example, contacting friends, so maybe messaging people. This might be having calls, might be visiting friends' pets. So I actually visited my friend who I lived with for a bit, and her cat, who was a kitten, moved in the same week I did. So it's like he and I grew up together. And I saw them at the weekend, and it was really nice to kind of reconnect. And I think there's something about my friend and I hadn't seen each other in person for a while, but actually that connection is still there. You know, she and I still like send messages to each other in between visits. But even noticing how comfortable her cat still was with me. You know, this is a cat who, as a kitten, would sleep on my pillow, who would come and cuddle with me if she was asleep in the other room, or, you know, if I was up first, he'd come out and ask me for breakfast. And there's just something about reconnecting with kind of a past version, I suppose, kind of remembering how things were and reconnecting. So playing a little bit with him, you know, at the weekend was very similar to how I would play with him a couple of years ago when I lived with her, or lived with him, I suppose. And that kind of, I don't know, there's something about that connection with an animal who doesn't see you very often, but you can rekindle that bond immediately. And I think some people are better at this than others. So I definitely feel like in my personal relationships with friends, we can go ages without talking, but actually when we do then connect, we kind of get back to being like we'd never stopped talking or we'd never had that gap. And there are other people I know who really struggle with this, and actually that gap is detrimental for their friendship. So everyone's different. So all the things I talk about today do kind of pass through your own experience. You know, everyone is different. And while I feel like I've got a lot of different things to share that are fairly common in different parts of humanity, I don't know your personal experience. So yeah, just a thing. But I think it's worth considering. It's worth reflecting on the relationships you have, the connections you make. You know, have you spoken to your closest friends in the last couple of weeks? Have you had any kind of physical contact with friends, such as meeting up or having a cuddle with the cat or whatever that may be? Another way of connecting is connecting to ourselves. So that might be connecting in a spiritual way, but might be through journaling. Think about connection and feeling like grounded or rooted in who you are. So that might be thinking about your values. It might be thinking about what matters to you. It might be about considering your goals and perhaps if you had any resolutions at the beginning of the year. Thinking a little bit about your connection to those things or those events, those values that you have. So it might be something like journaling, doing art, kind of doing something that you used to love as a child, sort of perhaps doing a sport or going to an event or something that you used to love. There's lots of different things that can connect you to that sense of self. For some people it will be, you know, climbing a tree. For others it might be sitting on the swing. For another person it could be, you know, going ice skating if you used to like roller skating as a kid, and things like that. So really connecting with the you underneath, and that could be like things that you used to like as a child, but also perhaps things as an adult that you don't do quite as much anymore. It can be really easy when we are thinking about connection to ourselves to go too deep in or take too broad of a view of things. So for example, it might be actually that you just want to journal a bit. It might be that you go through some old photographs. It might be that you go and visit your friend whose cat you lived with a couple of years ago and he still remembers you. It might be you do something that you did as a child to kind of see how it feels as an adult and see what kind of values come up for you. So for example, I am going to be going on a boat in a few weeks' time, and I haven't been sailing since I was a child. But actually that is something that I remember having really fond memories of, and I certainly liked being on the water, and I'm intrigued how I'm going to be and how much that will or won't feel like a connection to myself. In the same way that when I go to archery at the moment, and I can't always do it with my health, but when I can do it, there is that kind of sense of, yes, I always liked these kinds of things. I like to be out in nature. I like to have something that was quite focused and have a really clear goal in mind. And it is something that I can do on my better days. So again, it's something that does kind of connect me to my body, makes me feel like I can do some sports, even though I am limited. Again, thinking about like exercise and sport, like connecting with your body. So for some people it might be yoga or Pilates, other people going for a walk, going for a run. Perhaps it's eating healthy food and realising how that makes your body feel. I recently managed to do another session of a VR kind of dance type of movement game, and did it with some music that came out when I was about 9. And there was just something really therapeutic for me about reconnecting with the 9-year-old who still remembered most of the lyrics and could even remember a couple of the dance moves. So even something like that, where you're getting back into your body, but you're again also like listening to music you haven't listened to for a long time. I can't remember the last time I listened to that first album from the 90s, you know. It's something that I feel is not recognised, like the importance of reconnecting with ourselves is something that's just not talked about as much, which I suppose is one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it. Because in the self-help world, in self-development, when you're thinking about goals and New Year's resolutions and plans and, you know, I guess new year, new me, or the glow up, or whatever phrases are going around, thinking about who we want to be in the future really is the most effective when we're considering who we've been in the past and who we are underneath our conditioning. So underneath all of those like shoulds and those musts, all the things we feel we need to do, what else is impacting that? And I think one of the last pieces around connection is actually thinking about our environment. And this is I find this tricky to put into words, but it is recognised that humans are impacted by our environments, and that changes how we feel about ourselves, how we sleep, how much focus we have, how motivated we feel. And I think there's just something about recognising the influence of our environment. And this might be as simple as I don't wear clothes that have branding on the outside of them, all the way through to I do not watch the news. And there are limits to what we can do. You know, I work in a city and I go to various locations and there are posters up, or there are, you know, billboards and screens and things around the roads where I live. And, you know, I cannot control everything about my environment. But there are things I can do, such as considering how much clutter I've got, thinking about what I am letting myself kind of experience. So for example, if there is something that I think I don't really want to be exposed to this, is there a way I can limit that exposure? You know, I'm not on TikTok and I don't tend to scroll and watch reels. When there are adverts on YouTube, I tend to like leave the room and let them run so that the revenue goes to those I'm supporting, but I don't need to be influenced by them. And I think it's really tricky for us to recognise just how important our environment is and think about how connected we are to our environment. And again, I struggle to word this. I feel like I don't know how to make what I want to say make sense. But the environment that we exist in is something that influences how we feel. It will shape our goals. It will shape what we end up doing, how we end up feeling. Bramble's environment is currently making him sneeze, which means he's just shoved his nose into the hay rack. My poor boy. So it's important for us to think about the things we can control. So I can choose to go to archery and then to stop at a park on the way home and just be out in nature for that morning. I can choose to go to my friend's house rather than have her come to my house, because then I get a change of scenery and because she will then make me a meal that I would not have the energy or, quite frankly, cooking skills to cook. So I get a nice meal out of it, she gets some company, she hasn't had to travel, but we get to both spend time in this environment where then I get different foods into my body and we can do things at hers that I can't do at mine because she has a bigger space than me. And it's something that really frustrates me that it's not talked about, because environmental factors are actually a huge part of our emotional, physical, psychological kind of experience. And whether that is, well, I can't control how small my flat is, but I can control how often I go to the park. I do sometimes go for walks down the river if my legs are feeling up to it. On the days where I can't make it to the river, perhaps it is just putting on some calming music and a nice video of some trees or something to kind of just to break up my environment for that day, just to give me something a little bit different, just to change the mood and tone of my environment for a little bit. And I think it's something that is quite underrated in recognizing that connecting to ourselves and connecting with our environment helps us feel safe. Speaking of environment, that was a really loud motor outside, and I'm gonna take that as a sign to stop here for today. But yes, thinking about connection to yourself, to your body, to your environment, to your values, to what you used to enjoy, to what you may still enjoy, to those things that perhaps you aren't recognizing or prioritizing. Just something to consider. How are you at connecting with yourself? How are you at feeling like you are rooted within who you are? And there's no right or wrong answer. But if there is any way of reflecting on this and perhaps then thinking, oh, maybe I should tweak this, I'll try this, I think it's all information that can be incredibly helpful for us. As always, thank you so much for being here. I hope that you are well. I hope that you're able to consider the connections of you and your environment and your values. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see future videos like this. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.